and I am going to try to make it work from here. I was planning to have my camera the other way, so I am trying to make it work this direction. Hopefully you can see enough of what I'm doing. I'm just going to do some like real-time troubleshooting. All right, so we are here today to learn how to make some face masks. I am an amateur sewer, and so I have been practicing this relatively simple face mask pattern, and I'm gonna just walk you through it today, and hopefully you can follow along, and hopefully you can make some masks. If you are not a sewer, don't worry about learning the skills if that's not something that you are ready to do. You can also participate in the Masker Aid Challenge by donating your time to Joann Fabrics and other places to help cut fabric for other people who are talented sewers to go ahead and make these masks. So, just real quick, if you haven't already, make sure that you have liked and followed all of our social media channels. So we are Girl Scouts of Northeast Texas. My name is Hillary St. John. I am the Girl Programs Manager for Girl Scouts of Northeast Texas. We are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, we also have a Twitter. So make sure that you take a second to like and follow all of those social channels so that you can stay up to date with what we are doing. We're also on YouTube. We have a new YouTube video that came out yesterday to show you a different type of crafty service project that you can do from home using materials that you likely already have. That one takes a lot less skill than making masks, so that's another good way to give back to your community while we are all in quarantine. So like I said, my name is Hillary St. John. I am coming to you live from my apartment because we are all in quarantine right now. It's been a fun learning opportunity, but I am so proud to work for Girl Scouts of Northeast Texas and represent Girl Scouts, an organization that cares so much about giving back to the community. So we are today, like I said, here to walk you through how to make some masks for our Masker Aid Challenge. And if you are looking for more information on the Masker Aid Challenge, you can go to our events page right now, gsnetx.org/events, and we actually have an event page to give you more information about the Masker Aid Challenge, so be sure to check that out as well. Like I said, I'm going to walk you through the steps of making a mask. And I also have Kelsey Brown, one of our amazing program coordinators, is here. She's going to try to answer some of your questions in the comment log as that's going through. And hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I am going to try to make sure that everything is in screen. Like I said at the top, I was planning on having this horizontal, but we are troubleshooting in real time, so it's a fun learning adventure for everyone. So, like I said, we are making these simple DIY at-home masks. There's a couple different items that you need in order to make these. You'll need some fabric. We are recommending that you use something that is 100% cotton. Something with a denser weave is preferred. Quilting fabric is really good for this type of project. So we are also partnering with Joann's. Joann's is donating fabric, so if you don't have this fabric around, you can go to Joann's to pick up different bolts of fabric. I think Michael's is also donating fabric. Like I said, there's an event page for the Masker Aid Challenge, so make sure that you are checking that for the most recent information about how to participate in the Masker Aid Challenge. So, this is the mask. You start with the fabric. You are also going to need some kind of soft wire. So I have some twist ties here. I don't know if you can see that, but that's just gonna be the nose bridge on the mask. So just some kind of soft wire. You can also use pipe cleaners if you have pipe cleaners. You can also use florist wire, any kind of soft wire that's just gonna be able to help keep that mask secure over the nose. And then you are going to need some bits of elastic as well. I used an old headband that I wasn't using anymore and cut that up. I know ideally folks are asking for 1/4 inch elastic. This is a little bit bigger than that, but as you can see with my first final product, when I put it on, not ideal, but it does work. So, you know, we use what we have. We use our resources wisely. We are Girl Scouts after all. So, like I said, you're going to start with your fabric, and you are going to need to cut 4 different pieces of fabric. I went ahead and pre-cut that fabric, but you are going to need 2 of the main fabric, and it's going to be 9 inches by 7 inches. All right, so that's what the main fabric looks like. This is my paper template. And then there's 2 pieces of the side fabric. You are going to need 6 inches by 2 inches, 2 pieces of that side fabric. All right, so I went ahead and pre-cut that. So you can see here, I have 1 piece of green fabric for my main fabric, and 1 piece of gray fabric. That's going to offer some nice contrast as I'm working so that I can remember which is the front and which is the back. A lot of medical workers have asked that we remember when selecting fabrics that these may be worn by men and women, so just keep in mind when you're choosing fabrics, try to pick something that is neutral. And so if we are going to start by sewing these 2 pieces together. So I am going to come over to my sewing machine here. I just have a very basic Brother sewing machine, nothing too fancy. And we are going to put the 2 main pieces together. And what you're going to do is you're going to sew a hem that is about 1/4 inch. So go ahead and stick the fabric in here. And go ahead and put down the foot pedal. It's always important to remember to put down your foot pedal. Sometimes if you are sewing and the fabric begins to bunch up and it's not going anywhere, it's probably because you forgot to put down your foot pedal. So I have done that so many times. It is a very common mistake. And we're just going to go ahead and sew 1 straight seam. I'm not going to worry about back stitching on this first seam because it's going to be the interior. There's going to be a lot of other seams around the sides and the edges. So I just want to get this started with 1 straight seam across, and then use my hand crank to bring the needle all the way to the top, pull out my fabric. And then this sewing machine does have a nifty little cutter right here, which is great. And now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And we are doing these seams on the long side, all right? So we are going to start with sewing on the long side of this fabric. And I'm just going to do the exact same thing and go ahead and sew a straight line here. So coming right down. When I am sewing, I usually have 1 hand on the side kind of guiding my fabric through, and then I will start with my other hand back here to kind of keep the fabric taut, but I don't need to pull it through. The sewing machine pulls it through on its own. It has these little feet that kind of push the fabric through. And then eventually I do move my hand to the back again, just trying to keep that fabric taut. So I am done with my second stitch. And there we have the beginning of the mask. And so I'm going to go ahead, and what you do next is you are going to just flip it inside out. So take your fabric, flip it inside out, just like that. And then what you want to do next is actually use an iron to sew down these hems so that they are nice and solid, so that you have a flat surface that you're working with. So I'm going to run over to my iron real quick and press these hems. And I did see someone note in the comments that people are asking for ties instead of elastic. I think especially if you don't have the right size elastic, creating ties is a great alternative. It's more comfortable, it's easier to adjust to your ear size or face size, so great point, thank you so much. I think that was Christina who said that. So definitely remember, there are a lot of different patterns out there. There are a lot of different YouTube videos out there right now showing people how to make these masks. I chose this pattern because, like I said, I'm an amateur sewer, and this was a relatively simple pattern for me to be able to do. But there are some that are a little bit more complicated. There are some that make round masks. There are some that make duckbills. There are some that have removable filters. This is the pattern, like I said. I am going with it because it's relatively simple for me as an amateur sewer to be able to accomplish, and because we have been working with a group to make sure that we are doing these things according to the way that they want them done. And so this is what we're doing. So the next thing you're going to do after you've pressed those seams is you're going to take your soft wire and you're going to go ahead and put it into one of those sides. So just go ahead and tuck it all the way up there. And like I said, this is what's going to be that bridge that holds the mask over your nose. So you just need some soft wire that's going to be able to be that little bit of shape. And so you can then pin it in place, and then you're just going to sew around it so that the wire doesn't move around. So I went ahead and I actually have another sample here where the pins are already in place. I've got my wire inside, and I'm going to go ahead and just stitch that in. Now, another important thing to note when you are working with pinned fabric is to never ever sew over a pin. Sewing over a pin is dangerous. You can break your sewing machine, you can splinter it. I knew someone in middle school who sewed over a pin and it like snapped back and got in their eye, so please make sure you never sew over pins. It is a bad idea. So just as I'm sewing, as I get to the points where the pins are, I'm going to take those out. So I'm going to start this pocket with just a quick little front and back stitch to secure that edge of the pocket. And then I am going to bring my hand wheel down so that my needle is all the way in the fabric, lift up my foot pedal and pivot my fabric because we're creating a little pocket. It's going to be a little, almost like a little rectangle. So I'm just going to go ahead and pivot so that I don't have to backstitch more than I want to. So go ahead and put that foot pedal back down to do the long side of this. And as we're working on these projects, like I said, I think it's amazing that so many Girl Scouts are, you know, so service oriented, and this is something that we really want to be able to contribute. But it's also important to note that this does not replace the surgical grade masks that our hospitals and healthcare workers do need. This is an alternative. This is better for someone who is working with someone who has a cold or the flu, but these are not in any way, shape, or form a replacement for the official I think it's N95. I apologize. I'm nervous. But the surgical grade masks, these do not replace that. So just gonna backstitch real quick to finish off that little pocket for my keeping my wire in place, and then lifting up the foot lever and pulling that out there. So now that we have our front and back side completed, we have our wire secured with our pocket here. The next thing you need to do is create some pleats. So we are going to pleat this 3 times. So you want 3 folds that are about 1 inch each. And so the way that I do pleating, I will warn you, I said I'm an amateur sewer. Pleating is not my favorite thing to do, and it's not something that I'm particularly good at, but I have been practicing a lot. And so thank you for your grace in advance. But what I do is I just take the piece of fabric and I fold it back and forth, and then I kind of pinch it with my fingers, fold it back and forth again, pinch it with my fingers, fold it back and forth again, and pinch it with my fingers. And then once I feel like I've got a good amount of pleating in there, I feel like this is the right length, it's the right amount folded over, I'll just kind of hand press it and pin it. So I've got my pins handy here. And so I'm gonna pin this all. And then once you're done pinning that, you're going to iron it again to keep those pleats in place. And like I said, pleating is not my favorite thing to do, so I actually went ahead and created another one so that I wouldn't have to do it in real time. So we have our face mask, we have our wire, we have 3 pleats. They're about 1 inch each. So this is what it looks like from the side. So you can see these pleats are just going to help when the mask opens up so that there's a little bit of extra fabric. So the next step once you've completed your pleats is to sew up the sides. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this in my sewing machine, and I have my pins over far enough that they are not going to interfere with the needle at all as I am sewing through. So just going to run through this real quick to secure those pleats in place. And this is another stitch that I'm not worried about back stitching on, because we are going to be putting a little pocket over this. We're going to be sewing the elastic over here, or your ties, whichever method you are using. So again, there's going to be some other secure stitches in place there, so you don't necessarily need to worry about back stitching on that piece of it. So I finished one side, go ahead and taking out the pins on that side, and now I am moving to the other side. And again, just to clarify, I did specify never stitch, never sew over the pins, but you can, if you have the pins over far enough, like on my pleat here, I'm able to get the needle all the way through without running over my pins and endangering my eye health or my machine integrity. So we have now, we have our mask that has our pleats, we have our wire in place, and the next step is to secure the elastic. Elastic can be tricky to work with, so I do think, if you are going the tie route, that's a really good option. It's a much easier material to work with than elastic. Elastic can be tricky. I recently made fitted sheets, and that was quite a learning challenge. And just sewing elastic can really trip up your machine, especially if it's not a super high quality machine like mine here. But I, for today's example, was just working with the instructions that we had, which did call for elastic, and I happen to have some, so that is what we are going with. If you are doing ties, you would do functionally the same thing. They would just be loose. You might want to use like some thin strips of fabric to tie it together, or you might use some string or twine or something that you have. Something that would be soft and comfortable around the ears is really important. So when you are working on attaching the elastic or ties, you want to put them on the front end of your mask, and you can pin them in place right there. And think about when you're putting them on, have them about half to quarter inch away from the edge of the material, and think about the way that it loops. So we have it on the front of the mask, and it is looped so that when you're wearing it, it's going to be just a comfortable position. It's not all twisted around or anything like that. So just pinning my elastic in place right now, and then I'm going to sew that on and move to the next side. All right. So as I was preparing for this project, I was thinking about different sewing puns. If you know me, you know I love a good corny joke. And I thought about the phrase, "a stitch in time saves 9." And I am wondering if anyone watching this video is familiar with the phrase, "a stitch in time saves 9." Go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you have heard that phrase, if you know that phrase. All right, and if you know the phrase, "a stitch in time saves 9," can anyone tell me where that phrase comes from or what it means? Let's start with what it means, and then we'll get into where it comes from. So, "a stitch in time saves 9" actually is an old French proverb, and it comes from the idea that if you put one stitch into something that is falling apart now, it's going to save you from having to put 9 stitches in it later. So now it's a common literary phrase that just means saving time or not procrastinating. I thought that was really interesting. I actually had a way different theory about where it came from. I thought it had to do with like medical stitches, like a stitch in time could save 9 lives. But I think it actually makes more sense that it's about procrastinating. I don't know where I got that idea from, but yeah, we can all be creative. Oh, my thread almost fell out. This is why, again, I applaud Christina for noting that ties are easier and better for this project because I really don't like sewing elastic. So, yeah. And then, of course, after I looked into "a stitch in time saving 9," had to look up some good sewing puns. So if I have any other sewers here watching with me, please comment with your favorite and best sewing puns. I love a good corny joke. If anyone watched my cat service video, then you will know that I just love them. Just love corny jokes. Had all the corny cat jokes in that video. So I did come up with a couple of my own sewing related puns. I started a project that I was sewing. I was sewing a sweater and I didn't have the proper equipment. Needless to say, I didn't get very far. That's funny, right? Alright, so I am just attaching the elastic on the second side of my mask right now, and I'm trying to just get it in place so that I can move on to the next step. We're going to create some finishing pockets for it, and then we're almost done. We are almost through this project. And I will say, when I first read through the instructions for this project, it seemed a little intimidating, a little overwhelming, especially, like I said, I am an amateur sewer. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. But this is now like my 5th mask that I've made, and it gets easier with each one. I learn a little bit more each time. One thing that I will say, since I am bad at pleating, I have made my fabric squares a little bit bigger than the recommended 9x7. I've made it actually closer to 7.5 or 8 inches, so that when I do those pleats, there's enough room for me to fold them, and then it's still approximately 3 to 4 inches on each side. So, all right. I think I just saw someone comment, when life gives you scrap, make a quilt. I love that. I love that because it's punny, and I also love it because I do use all of my scrap fabric for different projects. So I really like to do embroidery, I like to do patchwork, and so that's a really good one that hits home for me. So, alrighty, we are done with attaching the elastic. Whew. Again, consider using ties instead. Alrighty, so once we have your elastic or ties fixed, we just want to kind of clean up these edges. So what you're going to do is you're going to take, remember I said you also need some smaller bits of fabric. So you need your side fabric. It's 2 inches by 6 inches. So I have 2 of those. And you are going to take those and fold them in half and then press that. And so again, using your handy dandy iron, fold that over so that you've got a nice good fold. So it's going to create like a little pocket. And you are going to use this to fix up those edges. What you do is you take your scrap fabric and you're going to put the raw edges, which is the unfinished, the non-folded side, over the edge here. So it's going to cover up, it's going to line up with those other raw edges, okay? And so you can pin that in place. I'm not going to use pins because I am going to just hold it in place and get it on there. And for this piece, you are going to want to have that about a 1/4 inch hem again. So that's going to line up with your other hem. It's going to go over the elastic again. So just sew that on. I'm not back stitching on this one either because I am about to flip it over and sew again on the other side. So I have that fixed up there and then pulling that out. So you end up with some overhang, and you're just going to take that overhang and fold it over and then sew on the other side. So I'm going to cut off some of this excess thread before I do that, because we do want this finished product to be neat and not have a lot of dangling loose threads. So just folding this over, and then I am going to just stitch that on there, finish up this little seam here. So I have a friend who is a songwriter, and she is always writing songs about sewing machines. So I guess you could call her a singer-songwriter. Get it? Singer is a brand of sewing machine. For those of you who don't know, now you know. All right, so once we have finished sewing that little pocket onto the other side as well, clipping off any little loose threads, you're gonna flip that pocket inside out. All right, so you just see I'm turning it inside out so that we have that folded edge upturned now. And then I'm gonna fold it down. All right, so you can see I'm folding it down, and we're going to keep the elastic out, and we're just going to sew it right along this way to finish that up. So we just sewed the pocket around, flip it up, flip it over, and this is how you are finishing your mask. So I'm going to go press this real quick, and then I'm going to sew it. All right, so I just pressed it real quick because that helps keep it in place as I go ahead and finish up this stitching. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick this back in my sewing machine and just fold or sew along that folded edge. And this is how we are finishing up the mask. So at this time I will use a little bit of back stitching just to make sure that that is securely in place. So here we go. All right, and then that's the last step. That's how you do it. So you just repeat that on the other side, and then you have your completed at-home sewing mask. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope that you learned a little bit. I hope that you had fun. One last sewing pun I can't resist before you go. How can you tell if a sewing machine is trustworthy? Anyone know? How can you tell if a sewing machine is trustworthy? If it seems legit. Get it? Seems? This is like seems. All right, I had a lot of fun. I hope that you had fun. Don't forget to check out our event page for the Complete Masker Aid Challenge. So it's at gsnetx.org/events, and you'll find it. It's Masker Aid. It's another pun. Can't get over puns. I love them so much. Thank you so much for watching. And please, even if you can't sew, find different ways to participate and help people out. Again, this isn't a replacement for the surgical grade masks, but this is something that hospitals and healthcare workers have been asking for to help supplement their shortage of masks right now. So thank you so much, Girl Scouts, for everything you are doing to give back during this time of need. And thank you so much for tuning in and supporting me. I will go through the comments and reply as much as I can, but I am going to sign off. Peace out, Girl Scouts.